Hello and welcome to episode 9 of NiHao Salam. Today's episode is about feminism.
Yep, we're excited to do it.
Before we get into the heavy topic though, let's do our 2 truths and a lie. Jeff, you go first.
All right. I used to be homeschooled and actually did well. I actually believe humans will have to restart civilization in about 100 years or less. Third, I don't believe in an afterlife.
Well, 2 of them are negative things and one of them is a positive thing, which makes me think the positive thing is a lie. I remember when we first started dating, you said I think the world has like 60 years max left to it. So I don't think you have much hope that it will last longer. Which in some ways is hopeful because then the world doesn't go on without us, which is selfish but nice, kind of.
Well, it's a reset button. I'm saying civilization restarts.
How?
In about 100 years. I mentioned that 60 years from now, people will be extinct. I still believe that. But I think there will be like a fringe group that probably will survive.
Okay.
For about hiding for about 40 years. And they will bring back civilization about 100 years as a restart.
I want to be... Should we go hide now? Get ready?
This is just a speculation. It might not come true. We might all survive. Half of us might, or none of us might.
Okay. Considering the fact that you just gave me a detailed... You almost confessed that that's the truth just now.
Yeah, I mean, it could be lying too. It could be 99 years.
Stop. No, you said 100 or less, so 99's included. You don't believe in an afterlife. So, you used to be homeschooled, but I don't think you did well.
Yep. You got me. And yeah, I don't believe in afterlife.
You should have made the top one negative too, because the theme was like, we'll die in 100 years. There's nothing after. I did really well in high school. Like, of course that one's a lie.
I did well in high school.
Sorry, homeschool, not high school. I used to fantasize about dying in high school and would write down speeches I wanted everyone to say about me. I once scratched my car going forward and then backed up into a trash can in the process of trying to drive away. When my cousin was in high school and I was in elementary school, she had to sell chocolate bars for breast cancer. So I told her I'd sell them for her. I tripled the price, made a profit, and scammed the charity.
You've definitely mentioned about dying, fantasies about dying in high school and people writing speeches and stuff for you. And
who hasn't, though?
I have never done that. And then the last one is probable. Just like taking over someone else's like idea or business and just like actually do well and then earn profit. That's just so probable. Like, yeah, that's you. And then the second one is kind of like, it seemed like you would do that, but I've never heard about it. So I'm guessing then the second one.
Yeah, that's a lie. I have never gotten into a car crash or I've never hit anything in my life.
That's good.
Considering I'm a terrible driver, it's very shocking. Very nice.
You got a clean record. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. The fantasizing about dying, I think, it's just like wondering like what would people say, like would they miss me, would they like mope around crying?
Wow.
And then when
hilarious.
when my cousin was in high school, she went to like a really elitist like private school, and they did a lot of like sell magazines. Whoever sells the most magazines gets an iPad stuff. I was like 8 years old. She was 16 or so, and they had given them a bunch of chocolate bars, and they were like, whoever sells the most chocolate bars can win a DS. Try to do this, and that. She couldn't even sell one. Like, everyone she knew was also selling chocolate bars. So she tried to sell me one, and I was like, no. Give them to me. I'll do this for you. And I took them to my elementary school. I took them to my neighbors' houses. I would ring the doorbells of my neighbors and go with chocolate bars and like a pink ribbon. And I'm like, this is for breast cancer. I tripled the price. I gave my cousin the amount of money that she needed to get like her prize. And then I kept all of the rest of the money. And my mom was just laughing. She was like, oh my God. Because I think when I was 8, we had just come to America like a couple years. So I was the breadwinner of the family for that week. It was like a really good day.
Yeah. That's such a businesswoman type shit right there.
But also, I'm so sorry to the breast cancer. Well, I still gave them the money they were asking for. The breast cancer organization was selling it for $2. I just made it $6.
Yeah, you turned a profit quite quickly.
I was good at getting people to feel bad for me.
Yeah.
I also, for my own school, sold magazines. I would go door to door, and I would sell like 17 magazine, Time magazine. I would get people to sign up for subscriptions, and I would go home and fill in the sheet. You know those sheets that have like the sheet under it?
They got kids to do labor for free or something.
Yeah, I think I won like a $10 Starbucks gift card for that one.
It's ridiculous. That's a scam. I've never done this because I lived in Hong Kong my life.
Yeah. They always had us selling stuff. They had us doing walkathons.
How did that happen? How did schools sign up to let kids do this?
Well, her school wasn't technically the one doing it. It was like a breast cancer organization. My school was a public school, so it was actually looking for money. My school had like no money. So it makes sense for mine to do a walkathon. So
no, yeah.
Because you would go to the house and people would...
I'm not talking about organizations collaborating with school. I'm talking about like...
actual school?
Schools that have these like coupons to sell to other people, and you get prizes for selling like enough coupons or something. Anyway, let's move on to our topic of the day, feminism.
Sure. We have a disclaimer before we begin. We are both feminists. We believe in equal rights for women. Specifically, we identify as liberal feminists. This podcast is us discussing the movement and what improvements we'd like to see. In no way are we trying to insult feminism. Rather, we want to better understand for our own stance. Again, in no way do we want to attack feminists. Please don't attack us. Okay,
my first question is, what are the different types of feminists? What is a social justice warrior? What's the difference between a feminist and a social justice warrior?
So the definition of feminism, at its core, feminism is the belief in full social, economic, and political equality for women. There's 20 types of feminism, and they range. There's postmodern feminism, radical feminism, libertarian feminism, liberal feminism. The list goes on and on and on. So, social justice warrior was originally a person who expresses or promotes socially progressive views. Now, more typically used with a sardonic application, referring to a person who is seen as overly enthusiastic about issues of fairness. Some of them may get offended by everything and anything, no matter how big or small, how real or fake something is. All feminists are social justice warriors, but not all social justice warriors are feminists. Sort of like how cats are mammals, but not all mammals are cats. I think I've been called a social justice warrior before because it's like by a white man. I think people don't like that they can't say anything anymore. But I saw a TikTok the other day, and it was this woman making fun of like veterans or something. It was like a liberal feminist making fun of veterans. She was like, "Oh my God, go die at war," and a ton of like white men, like conservative people were like, "That's so rude. You have no respect for veterans." Like, she was clearly joking. Like, all she said was men should go die at war. Mm-hmm. And all these conservatives were like, "You hate veterans, you hate America." And she was like, if this was reverse and you guys said something and I got this offended, you'd call me a social justice warrior. But like, conservatives get just as mad as like over 9/11 jokes. They get just as mad over war jokes. Like, whatever applies to them, someone gets offended over, of course. So it's unfair to call all liberal people social justice warriors. Like, I think yeah.
Another word they use much more frequently is
snowflake. Yeah.
I think Republicans are so ironic when they use words like snowflake because
they get so offended.
They are
easily.
the most offended ones.
Yeah.
And they like, oh, that's a cancel culture. They should stop doing that. And they themselves cancel restaurants for like offending their beliefs.
Yeah, they're like, I can't wear a mask in here.
Boycotting.
Yeah.
They're literally
they're so sensitive.
that they're sensitive about.
And like, You can't say someone defending a political topic is just immediately sensitive.
I mean, there are sensitive people on both sides. Let's be clear.
True.
But we're not on, but not both sides are ironically doing it.
Yeah. So that's the difference in the definitions. I'm going to ask my question.
Sorry, unironically doing it. Sorry, go ahead.
Modern day feminism puts a huge effort into sexual liberation, even when it's inappropriate. I personally believe sex work is real work and want more rights given to women in the sex industry. However, I have an issue with the romanticization of sex work to minors on apps like TikTok. I think 18 is too young to decide that it is a career path you want, and it's almost like modern feminism is grooming us to believe jumping into sex work when you turn 18 is normal. Do you think sexual liberation is taking steps backwards? Men used to sexualize us, and now some of us promote it on our own pages.
I don't think it's taking a step backwards, mainly because people have a choice nowadays to do it without the worst stigmatization you got in the past, when there are much more scrutiny towards people who choose sex work and see sex work as something that is taboo and frowned upon by families and co-workers and people who are in position to make the decision to call it as prostitution or illegal prostitution. I think that the more we I mean, it's recent, this change of like pace of like taking sex work into like a new level, and so we have to brace for the worst kind of like feminism pushing this, so that we can actually achieve what is in reality a normal thing, which is providing a service. And we have been doing that in the past. It's just that we need to get over this hump of like people are over fetishizing or overly pushing the concept onto us to normalize it. And it should be normalized. It should be in a way normalized to a point where people feel safe to do it, and people feel like it's a solution to a problem they have in their life.
I think things like OnlyFans are really good, because in the past, porn stars and just any sex worker, not just porn stars, got taken advantage of a lot by the industry. They didn't get the fair pay they needed. Now they can pay themselves through it. They make their own rates, stuff like that. It's really great in that kind of sense. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm anti those things. I'm just saying when people make romanticized videos about it and they know their audience is below 18, I kind of have a problem with it, because I don't think young women should be exposed to that idea until they're ready for that decision. And I also think the romanticization of being a sugar baby is bad, because I know many women who do that, and they didn't know what they were getting into. A lot of the times people regret it, or they had this misconception before they turned 18 and could do it, or like could leave home and do it, that you could just go on a date with a guy and he'll transfer $10,000 into your account. It's like, no, the people making $10,000, like, you're putting yourself out there, like, you're giving them what they want. And I just wish if they're going to promote it, they'll be honest about the cons as well, instead of just, look at my penthouse I got from doing this. Because it's like, if your audience is 20 and above and you just want to do apartment tours, that's fine. But a lot of these people have a young audience looking at their like makeup tutorials, hair tutorials.
Could you give us an example of an actual feminist pushing this concept of sex work being a solution to making money?
I don't know a specific like name. It's just, it comes up on my feed all the time, like these like rich women, and then they're asked like, how do you make so much money? And they're like, OnlyFans.
Do you think that all sex workers are feminists?
No, I was just asking if this push for sexual liberation could actually sometimes be negative.
Well, sexual liberation is being able to use your body however you want. I think that people who use their body however they want and I don't think they're promoting sex work. I've never actually seen an example of what you're saying exactly. They're just showing off that, they could make it through by using their body. That's liberation in itself, but I don't think they're telling people, hey, use my promo code, use this. They're not expressing...
No, of course not.
They're not expressing a business idea that everyone should tack on. I think that if it becomes to the point where actual feminist activists out there are actually grooming kids to be like, think sexually, then that will be an issue.
Yeah.
I think that is true. We need to protect young minds. And however, there is a limitation with censorship. You can't censor everything.
Yeah.
And kids are always going to look up how to get money quick, how to get money at all. Like, they should have that freedom to do that. And to protect them is, you can't do that. Like, it's almost impossible to protect them.
I know that they can always search it up. I just meant, if you're a TikToker with a large following that is young women, it's an extra push, I think.
Your problem is not really feminism. Your problem is sex workers who push the idea of liberating your body.
No, my issue is people with big followings that are young women, not women my age, women that are like they know their audience is middle schoolers or high schoolers.
So you think that they should censor themselves?
I think you should know your audience and know who you're preaching to and know what you're saying can affect young women.
Do you think that young women have the sound mind to think, I need to protect other young women?
I think a woman my age, should know that. Okay.
That's good. I didn't know that they're supposed to have that kind of mentality out the gate.
Well, a lot of women will do like, this is my body from this angle, this is my body bloated. Like, they know that what they're showing young women affects them. Like, I actually love those videos where people show their real body or show their face without Photoshop and with Photoshop and show you what real life is like, because they know who's watching. They know that a lot of young women struggle with like eating and struggle with acne, stuff like that. In the same way, they're also deciding their career paths and also deciding, a lot of young women also want to be like in social media, stuff like that, and they're like, oh, this person I follow does this and they're so happy, maybe you should think about that. Like,
so what should they do as a sex worker who are young and who are impressionable and want to express themselves?
I think you could still post about it, but in the same way you don't only post bikini pictures, in the same way you don't, like, people are showing their real selves and showing their faces without Photoshop, you should also say the cons.
What if those photos that you saw that, that you got this concept that they are promoting a certain thing that you didn't fully see through what they have been posting previously, where they were promoting safe sex work?
I don't know.
Couldn't you just be judging them for what you just saw on your For You page, rather than their whole ideal picture where they might be pushing safe sex work? Maybe you are just seeing a small snippet of their identity and judging them by their identity and saying they're these feminist people. There are a lot of feminists pushing sexuality on younger kids. Isn't there that possibility?
There's that possibility, but it does happen.
I've heard from numerous people that although they identify as a woman, they wholeheartedly disagree with how feminists have evolved, or feminism has evolved. They have expressed that some feminists have shunned men from doing any good deeds for them and getting aggressive towards men in a general manner. They also expressed that most feminists nowadays seem to push the narrative that a strong woman is independent and prove themselves by being part of the workforce and take leadership. This applies pressure on many women to pursue a career where they would have been much preferred to settle down or take care of their kids full time. Are women who want chivalry and men to provide for them sexist against themselves?
No, I think there's different kinds of people, and like our person, like we're all women are women, but we all have different personalities and different desires in life. And if someone wants the man to take care of them and they love kids, like why can't they have kids and stay home and take care of them? It's like the same as wanting to be a teacher or like pursuing a career in that kind of sense. Like you love kids, you maybe they want to adopt kids, maybe they don't even want their own kids. Like I see no wrong in someone whose dream is like to have a happy, clean like home and a happy family. And to say that every woman wants to work, like did you take a poll? I think anytime I've worked, I want to go home. Like, I I understand women fought really hard to be able to do the same jobs as men in this country, but as a person from Iran and seeing how nice my grandma's lives were doing nothing, I would love to do nothing. And I don't think that's backwards and that I'm giving my rights away, because if I get married and I tell my husband I don't want to do anything, if anything, I'm being a girl boss by deciding that for myself. Like, I think it's okay. Like, there's a difference between, like, your partner controlling your debit card, controlling your finances, telling you you can't work, keeping you at home, forcing you to have kids. There's a difference between that, which is terrible, disgusting, and a woman literally not wanting to work and being like, I would love to stay at home and, like, bake a pie. Like, I would personally love to do nothing and, like, take yoga classes and, like, have a child and, like, brush their hair. Like, that would be enough for me in my life. I can understand how some women, that's, like, disgusting to them. That's not their goal. I have many friends who are like, you would want kids? Like, why would you ever want kids? And I understand the other side of it, too, wanting to focus on your career. But I don't think it's right for women to tell other women how to live.
Yeah, the pressure is real. I mean, have been many decades, or actually since the beginning of time, where men grew this protective go hunting, go protect your family with weapons and going out to fight wars, and it's just something that has been built in. And now that we have this less need to protect the family by taking up arms and fighting and growing things. I don't think people realize that men and women now have a choice to either work or not work. If they're with someone that can provide for the family. And the pressure is real, and I think that it's not necessarily the feminist intent to put that pressure on everyone. It's just that there is a pressure to break down the patriarchy and to gain back power. And if you don't want to take a leadership role, or if you don't want to go back to a workforce, you should have that freedom. And you do, actually. Yeah. You just have to discuss that with your partner. You just have to figure out how you can work out the logistics of it all, and do what is in your heart, or whatever you're passionate about. If you want to stay home and take care of kids, that's your passion, you should do it. You should discuss that with your partner and do it, even if you're a man or not a woman. Like, it's not that.
Sometimes other women judge you.
It doesn't matter if that's your passion. Like,
I know it doesn't matter. That they're not gonna come punch you in the face.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm talking about judgment.
Yeah, I got judged hard when I chose to be an artist by my ex's family. They're like, "Oh, you're just gonna sit home all day." Like, it's obviously not true. Like, I have to get a job. I have to work part-time when I was in school. Like, it's not the reality in which people judged you by, and I took them as like ignorance. You can still do what you want to do. You just have to make sure that your partner is down for it.
I'm not doubting that.
I'm not saying you are doubting it. I'm
But
just
your question
clarifying.
was, are women who want chivalry and men to protect them sexist
My
against
answer is
themselves? Yeah, and my answer is no too.
Okay.
Okay. One of the issues in feminism is the pay gap. For every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 82 cents. But black women make 63 cents to that dollar. Do you think we need to address the pay gap between races before we try to bridge the pay gap between genders? Some icons for feminism only relate to white women. Rosie the Riveter, she was a staple for women's rights, but black women at the time said she in no way was their icon. They'd been working well before the concept of Rosie became popular, and even so, they still never made as much as white women. Rosie just promoted the idea of white women in the workforce. I personally have my own answer to my own question, but you go first.
I think there is a big gender wage gap, and I also believe that there is truth in that there are wage gap between races. And it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed even before addressing the wage gap between genders.
I think so too.
I think that people need to learn that the companies want you to feel like it is a taboo to ask about anyone else's earnings and salaries and pay, but you have the right. It is completely legal, and it probably put fear into your company if you find out how much men or women are earning in your company, because there are men who earn less than women, and there are a lot more women that are earning a lot less than men for doing the same job. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you find that there is inequality, you can talk to your boss and say, I just learned this. You need to address this now, or else you are getting in trouble. And they will have to honor it. And there are reasons why, some statistics are the way it is. But in reality, if you feel like you're being paid unequally, you need to step up. You need to tell your boss how it is. You need to have courage to let them know that this is discrimination.
I think, although that's true, you could tell your boss and stuff like that. Women are, in office spaces and also just like higher up positions, they're surrounded by men, and it can be scary to try to step up because you're already fighting for so much to have your foot in that door. And then if you're a woman of color, like specifically a black woman, you've probably dealt with so much like trouble getting to this spot, and so many people being against you, and to finally make it there, people get imposter syndrome. They think that, they don't even deserve this. Like, a lot of people of color have imposter syndrome, which is basically the concept of you work just as hard as your like white counterpart, but you just feel like you're unworthy of it because like you've never seen this happen before. So like white people often believe they deserve everything, whereas people of color work really hard for everything. So I think it's difficult for women, and specifically women of color, to then go up to their boss and say, no, I need more money, because they might be battling with their own demons inside of not even thinking they deserve the money they're getting in the first place because of imposter syndrome and stuff.
It's true. There are imposter syndromes. There are people who suffer from that. And I feel like because companies already know that it is illegal to discriminate pay, everything's based on what they can do and what they offer. And if someone is doing the same thing and you find out that they earn more than you for doing the same thing, you have the right. That's all I'm communicating.
Yeah.
I'm not discrediting that they feel a certain way. I'm purely saying you have the rights to protect yourself. For some time, I consider myself quite progressive, wanting free social programs for all, taxing the rich, prison reform, defund the police, etc. Then I had to second guess myself when I discovered what radical feminists and other activists are saying and doing. In short, there is an uncanny trend of being outraged for the sake of outrage and self-vindication. I think there are ways to disrupt or reconstruct the patriarchy without being vulgar and outrageous. Some may argue, and being overly aggressive may be the way of fighting back and claiming what was holding them down. I would totally be down with that if it wasn't associated with unreasonable, unfounded, and uncooked arguments. As a woman yourself, what is your opinion on fighting with aggressive manner? Is there a right way of fighting back something systemic, and how far is too far?
I think if you're fighting something systemic, it could mean that you're in a courtroom, it could mean that you're talking to some officials, something like that. Like, if you're in a stance to have a platform to speak, I wouldn't be aggressive is like, I don't know if it's the right word. I would try to speak their language, because people tend to zone out people when they're being aggressive. I myself included. Like, if someone starts yelling at me, I just disassociate or start crying. Like, I don't really hear what they're saying. I just hear like screams. So in the same way, if you're in like a courtroom trying to get rights for some group and you're screaming and yelling, it in some way discredits you, because people will start zoning out. People will start seeing you a different way. And you could be saying everything correctly. There was this one woman, she was in this English talk show with this guy that runs, I think, Shell, like the gas station, and she was saying wonderful things about, she was speaking so well about global warming and how this guy from Shell is harming us and how he's responsible for such a large portion of climate change. But then the moment she started like crying and being aggressive, you could tell the audience and the people in the discussion were like, no, I'm not listening anymore. And it sucks, because if you're passionate about something, you're naturally going to start crying. I myself start crying when I'm talking about something I'm passionate about. But I can see that people don't take it well. They would rather have an actual discussion. And also, sometimes I think social justice warriors or people fighting for social causes don't get a platform. Like, they're so used to the other side getting to share their story that whenever they get a chance, it's like being shushed all the time. And then when you get a chance to talk, you're like, I have to, blah, 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 I have all of this to say, because this whole time you've been asking the other person how they felt about the situation. It's like unfair in a way, because you get shushed, and then when you get the platform, you're so ready to speak up, and they're like, oh no, this person's so aggressive, I don't want to hear what they're saying. So it's hard to self-correct. Should you be aggressive for no reason, like someone's actually being nice to you, trying to have a discussion, you're immediately like, no, you're conservative, you never understand, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, that's wrong. That's terrible. If someone, especially someone who doesn't know as much as you and is like conservative, comes to you asking, like genuinely asking how you feel about something, you immediately go to, no, you're racist, I don't want to talk to you, like, you're so disgusting. I hate when people do that, because I think you can change someone's mind, and I think that the worst thing you could do to a conservative is just immediately call them racist and not want to talk to them, because they'll just bubble up and get more conservative, because their experience with a liberal will be this negative one, and they'll just be like, oh, this person wasn't nice to me, but the Proud Boys are nice to me, I'm just gonna go over here then. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I think, and I want to say this is most likely stemming from people stigmatizing a woman having an episode, or assuming a woman is unfit because they cry, because they are yelling, and therefore they're out of their mind, they're crazy, they're immediately labeled as something that is uncontrollable. And or that they are being told their whole life that a woman should behave, small. They use their inside voice. They're being told there's this idea of what a woman should look like or sound like, and their reaction is to do the opposite. And I feel like it may stem from that ideology where if we can't get a point across as a gentle person, we might as well do something that's more radical and more manly, and being aggressive might change. And in truth, it may work in some culture and environment, but in some situation it might not. So it may be a hit or miss. Being aggressive could work in a situation where a boss might be able to withstand that aggression and cow down over it. Or some bosses might see that and be like, no, you're being unreasonable right now. My facts are facts and your facts are just emotions. They could argue all these things. So everyone has to be able to understand the situation first and dictate what is the best course. Should I be yelling? Is there a reason to yell? Is there a reason to make this argument? Is this argument sound? Do I sound righteous right now? Or is this just a concept that I need to work on? So that's all I have to say.
I agree. How do we incorporate intersectional feminism into life? Most feminists I've met are white women, and I don't relate to their beliefs. As a woman from the Middle East, I have a different way of viewing the freedom of our bodies, specifically modesty. I also have met some feminists who believe every woman should work. Sorry, my question's similar to yours. I personally dream of having my future husband do all the work while I bake at home. I think a working woman is just as strong as a mother. Do you think feminism is different between cultures?
Of course. I believe that many feminist movements have evolved through time, through different culture, and different countries have different levels of progression. And there are some that are progressing very slowly because of their oppressive country nature and what's built into the system. And some countries are far more progressive in a sense that the government is on the side wholeheartedly on both gender. They want both equally successful. And some are actually only on women's side, and it's rare, but they are valuing women's life more. And I feel like that's cool, but it jeopardizes the emotions of men. But they had their time, so if it works for that country, whatever. This
What
is good
country?
for. There are very progressive countries, feminine dominant countries like Spain. They're just like taking over.
Oh.
So
In Iran, if you get a divorce, the man gets the kids and everything. Fun fact. So, I think feminism in places like Iran stems from like wanting women in the professional workforce. Like the jobs that are available to women there are like teachers, bazaar worker, mother. And of course, there's still women doctors and women lawyers, but it's so rare and so difficult. And you have to come from such a financially privileged background to get to that state. And then some of the women who get to that state like could want to wear a hijab or could want to then quit everything and become a mother. Every woman is different, right? But I just don't relate to the feminists in America because their battle they're fighting for sometimes I don't believe in. Specifically when it comes to just believing, some feminists believe that all women need to work. I think also other countries like feminist movements are real movements, whereas here it's like a capitalist thing. Like it just feels like a money scheme, not making women work, but adding 2 people to the workforce, and then our wages don't make sense for that kind of like situation. And then also a lot of white women monetize over feminism and sell like #feminist hoodies for $100, and you're like, or the Taylor Swifts who sell keychains that say F the patriarchy and it's like $40. It's like AOC wearing the dress at Met Gala that says like tax the rich, or like Cara Delevingne wearing the shirt that says F the patriarchy to promote her own brand. Like a lot of it is branding and selling this idea to us. And the people selling it are already rich, and they're always white women. So that's my issue. There's been so many amazing feminists in American history that get erased. the Time magazine article that was like the top feminists of the decade or something, like excluded the top black feminists, included like the white ones. It's just the people we see at the face of it, the Cara Delevingnes, the Taylor Swifts, the Lena Dunhams, like they don't represent the women that like want to fight for this. They represent the white women who, specifically in their case, are privileged and selling something that you have to have money to get anyways. I don't know. I think it's a race issue, a class issue, and a gender issue. But in America, feminism is like white woman against everyone else. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I understand. I think that they have their sector, which is in itself we should respect, because they want a movement that it can fight for, and if it's hurting someone, they should reconsider. And if it hurts people that they're selling, pink beanies with cats on it because they want to spin the whole idea of grab them by the pussy, and also just like taking a slogan and like pushing their slogan just like any other companies out there, I think that there's more power to them. Like if you want to use words a certain way and sell and make money, and put that back in your organization so you can host more gatherings and like get protection for your own kind, your own people.
It never goes back to,
I understand, but I'm just saying, if they want to use something that has been used to in a way that hurt them, to use that to empower themselves, I don't see a problem with it. But if they're hurting people by taking other people's money and like funneling that into their own pocket, it does set a bad rep for all feminists. For all feminists who want a good cause and want something to fight for and put that money into something that they want,
Yeah, I just think F the patriarchy keychains for $40 from a woman who's wealthy. They're going to her own pocket.
Do they not have a website that tells people where the money go? Or they just like say explicitly, this money is going into my pocket?
Well, the shops that I've been to in like Williamsburg have no like indication that this is going towards any cause. The Taylor Swift one is literally Taylor Swift's website. It doesn't go to any cause, doesn't say anything below it. And the Cara Delevingne wearing the F the patriarchy shirt was in promotion for her like sex toys brand.
So it hurts the movement.
I think it hurts the movement because not just the idea of selling these expensive things and not giving it to the foundation. It hurts the movement that the faces of these movements are not the people that actually have invoked change. Like the women in the Black Panther Party have caused so many amazing things to happen and fought for so long, and their names get erased. Whereas these people who are like the top names of feminism in history were like racists. Or like the reason they wanted equal rights or the right to vote was because they were offended that black men could vote before them. Like,
or the concept of black men.
Yeah, and they're not.
So if those merch were sold at $1 each, would that make you feel better?
I guess so. I mean, not $1 each, but just like the taking over a store in Brooklyn and selling #feminism shirts for an overly priced amount of money just feels like the most gentrified, terrible thing to me.
So they're just overpriced.
It's overpriced, and
so if it was underpriced, it would make you feel better?
I guess if it was a store dedicated to actual feminism and educating people and promoting women of color, not just white women. And I mean, most of these stores sell like boutique clothing and then also the #feminism sweaters. It's not like you go in and there's like just #feminism sweaters. They sell like candles for $40. They're just the epitome of gentrification and like ruining an area.
Okay.
So there's layers to why I hate it.
I just think that there's not enough harm done to make this a deal breaker or hurting the movement. Like, I
think it hurts it because women of color feel excluded from that part of it, because the people that get to be the forefront of the magazine covers and whose names are remembered are often either racist women in the past. I mean, the first wave of feminism, it was just racist women. And now it's like these women that white women mostly relate to.
Well, I think that there is definitely a change in that pace. Not currently, but I feel like we will see more change in that sense, that we will see more person of color in a feminist movement leadership. But
I mean,
currently,
they exist. Their names just get erased.
Yeah.
They exist. They've done a lot. It's just
they get overshadowed by someone who is of, a white descent.
Yeah.
I think that's all we have for the questions, and we're just going to take a break before we move on to our next segment.
Welcome back. We're going to show some clips. I specifically have one of Lena Dunham talking to Hillary Clinton. Now, Lena Dunham is a self-renowned feminist. She's worked with brand after brand, YouTube videos. She loves talking about feminism and women's rights. And she, to me, is the definition of, like, a white feminist who doesn't listen to her own advice. So here's a little background on her. She wrote a memoir. She had a book talking about her life, and she details interactions of sexual nature at an early age, one of which included her little sister. So in this book, she basically confessed to molestation of her sister and saw nothing wrong with it. Like, just wrote about it and published it. In 2017, Lena took to Twitter to publicly defend girls writer Murray Miller after he was accused of, trigger warning, rape by an actress Aurora Penigue. In an interview, this is another thing, in an interview with Amy Schumer for the show Shuttered, Lenny Letter, Dunham recalled meeting the New York Giants wide receiver at the Met Ball in 2016. It was so amazing because he looked at me and determined I was not the shape of the woman to his standards. Dunham said, he was like, that's a marshmallow, that's a child, that's a dog. It wasn't mean, he just seemed confused. And then everyone was like, did he say those things? Like, did you assume that? And Twitter was quick to point out that Beckham Jr. might have just been minding his own business. And Dunham took that as he hates her body, he thinks she's a marshmallow, he's not interested, he would only want to be with a model, just making these weird assumptions about him. And then in 2016, Dunham made a comment during her Women of the Hour podcast that didn't sit well with many people. She was talking about abortion. And she said, now, I can say that I still haven't had an abortion, but I wish I had. And everyone was like, what? And she's like, oh, it's just a distasteful joke. So, to me, she embodies that idea of the capitalistic view of feminism, selling it, branding it, making videos, and then in your walking life, you're defending rapists, you're a molester, you're assuming every man thinks you're a marshmallow and just bashing on him when all he did was look down, saying off, if someone's listening to a podcast about abortion and you're like, I wish I had one, it's not going to sit well with someone who has. And in this video I'm going to show with Hillary Clinton, I mean, when the Monica Lewinsky things happened, she shamed Monica Lewinsky. Hillary Clinton has not been, I voted for her. Don't get me wrong, but she is not the woman's, icon. And them talking about it just feels like two crazy evil people just giggling. So I'm going to show the clip of how videos can trick you.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the question on every Lenny's reader's lips is, do you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes, absolutely. I'm always a little bit puzzled when any woman of whatever age, but particularly a young woman, says something like, and you've heard it, something like, well, I believe in equal rights, but I'm not a feminist. Well, a feminist is by definition someone who believes in equal rights. I'm hoping that people will not be afraid to say, that doesn't mean you hate men. It doesn't mean that you want to separate out the world so that you're not, part of ordinary life. That's not what it means at all. It just means that we believe women have the same rights as men, politically, culturally, socially, economically. That's what it means.
What do you think about the idea of, this is what I mean by the icons of feminism being people you just don't want to stand behind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I also have an issue with Hillary. don't think that she always have been true feminist. I think that she has always been buddied up with a lot of people in power, and people in power are mostly men. I feel like she has a lot of donors that she needs to back and please. She hosts a lot of fundraiser, a lot of paid speech, which promises a lot of large corporation that she won't do anything to change. If anything, she has helped a lot of millionaires, billionaires, who are mostly men, to achieve their success. And that's what a corrupt politician is. And
Yeah.
she is the most corrupt out of all the women
No,
politicians out
I
there.
hate Kamala Harris more than I hate.
Kamala Harris is not as corrupt as someone who is the first lady at one point.
She's vice president.
I know, but she was so corrupt during her in office, and she has committed so many crime in office. She's worse. Kamala Harris does not claim to the things that she has claimed recently. She has not always protected women's right.
Yeah. Well, Kamala Harris is seen as like a hashtag girl boss, and she hid evidence from death row. Her prison reform was just terrible to people in the Bay Area. Not too long ago said immigrants are not welcome here. Go back. Do not come. It's hard to compare people. I myself voted for Joe Biden and Kamala. I myself voted for Hillary Clinton. It was my first time voting. I just turned 18 and become a citizen. I was so excited to place my vote. But just because I voted for them doesn't mean I can't see their flaws. Just because I think they're better than Donald Trump doesn't mean that they're good. And they're different. It's a different comparison. I understand. First Lady and Secretary of State and presidential candidate are different than presidential candidate and vice president, Kamala, and also DA. And also Kamala was a cop, and Hillary was never a cop. And cops, prove their intentions.
The reason why I say Hillary's worse, it doesn't matter what office position they had. It's what they did, Her crimes as First Lady, or even just before, is international, okay? Kamala is now vice president, but she always had been more domestically corrupt.
Yeah.
I think we should move on.
Yeah.
My segment showcases a couple things.
Okay.
First is a character named Rudolph Pantoja Jr. He's a Mexican-German Native American descent, consider himself to be Chicano. He became an internet meme in 2016 when a viral video of him jokingly identified himself as humongous. So August 10th, 2016, Pantoja spoke at a public meeting at the Seattle City Council supporting a new police station in the North Precinct, and crediting the police for helping his heroin-addicted daughter to get treatment. Activists were present demonstrating against the police expansion and were recorded off camera speaking out and out of turn and derailing Pantoja as he spoke and mistakenly assumed his race to be white. And at the meeting, activist Zarna, which you will see, speaking out against the new police station and police in general. After the meeting, she was videotaping Pantoja. When he was asked his name, Pantoja offered his gag name, Humongous. Zarna responded by angrily and repeatedly asking, Humongous what? Accusing him of sexual harassment, of pursuing him with her camera, and ultimately ending up in an altercation with the authorities present. So I'm going to start with the first video.
My name is Rudy Pantoja Jr. I live in the North End, grew up in the North End. We moved here in 1969. Grew up on 109th in Aurora. I am totally for a safe, learning, healthy environment in the North End. I am pro-precinct. I believe it's a positive move in our public safety north of the Ship Canal. I have plenty of people that support it, of all different backgrounds in the North End. I'm here. I'm here.
No interrupting the other speakers, please.
I want to say this, is I want to thank the North Precinct for getting my heroin-addicted daughter off the street and availing her an opportunity to get well. She's Latino. Hey, is she Hey. She's Hispanic, Latino, Chicano. We're proud of our heritage.
Your time is up.
I want to say this right now. I respect you when you speak.
Hey, excuse me. There has been several interruptions. I'm going to allow him a couple more seconds to wrap up his comments. I need you to wrap up your comments, though, because I'm trying to stay on time.
What I have to say doesn't matter. Because I live in, I really, seriously, what matters is what everybody else has to say. We support this precinct. We think it's an important investment for public safety in the North End.
Thank you.
My name is Zana Joshi. I am here to support Black Lives Matter. I'm here to speak to block the bunker. The fact that there is even a proposal to give what is a corrupt, murderous, institutionalized gang $160 million is outrageous. It is not that they are just a few bad apples, because all of the other apples around them speak for them and protect them. That means they are all bad apples. These cops are the front line of defense for fossil fuel companies, for banks, for corporations, and for the developers that evict people and make them homeless. This money needs to go to people who need housing, to people who need food, to people who need...
I don't know what the budget was for this and what's going on in the north end of Seattle.
$106 million.
160 or something. Precinct. Here's the thing. I don't believe interrupting him was right. As someone who's had family who struggles with addiction, I would never credit the cops for saving someone. I mean, that might sound wrong, but historically, cops have hurt drug users, and for him to say, the cops saved my heroin-addicted daughter, it's just like... But that's one case out of how many lives were ruined by cops with drugs. How many cops hid drugs and got people addicted and smuggled drugs to specific neighborhoods to hurt them. Like, I understand you could have one amazing experience with a cop that could have saved your daughter, but you have to, what she was saying, you have to look at the bigger picture, and interrupting him was so wrong. Because now she looks like the bad guy, or the people look like the bad guys because they interrupted him, and he had, a sad story, and you're interrupting a guy who could have lost his daughter, and that's not right. You should have waited for your turn and spoken about what he said, I think. But at the same time, I don't agree with him. I don't think adding $160 million to a precinct will help the public in their safety. I think what she said would help the public safety a lot more, having housing and healthcare and rehabilitation centers, things to actually help drug users or people who are in dire need of something like that. So it's hard for me to be on either person's side, because I don't like that they interrupted him, and I don't like, hurting a man who's trying to fight for his daughter. But I also need him to look at the bigger picture and know that $160 million going to cops it's not going to be the same story for other people and their daughters.
Yes, I mean, it's anecdotal. There's going to be a lot of experiences with cops out there in Seattle that are bad, and they wouldn't want that to continue. They would want to reform and retrain these cops. And it takes money to train these cops in a better condition, and also takes time, and a new culture is impossible to create, and it is all top down. And to defund them or to create a a dire situation for these cops might help. And I think that, yes, they should funnel this money into the community in a positive manner rather than, I think, if putting money into police is aggressive. I believe that he wholeheartedly believed that the cops helped her daughter get off the street because the streets there were dangerous, and to protect, I don't know, a vulnerable young lady was important to the community for the police, and they did their job, you know. It doesn't mean that, you know, the police didn't help them. We don't know what is the truth behind all of this. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he got this girl. We don't know. From his experience, he's telling his story. He wouldn't be showing up, you know, he works at a gas station, so he took a day off to speak at a hearing, you know. So this is what happened after the event.
Right now, the news is interviewing a person whose daughter was a heroin addict, I think, is what he said in his public comment. And he's pro-bunker, he's pro-cops. And so he's the one getting interviewed, and there are like a million people who have spoken about how they've been abused by the cops, that they're not being spoken to. Only the person who's pro-bunker, who's also a person of color. So they got their token, and that's the one that they're using. I have no idea, we'll find out.
I have a question. I'm actually against the bunker. Yes, I will.
You take my picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want my name?
Yeah, sure.
It's humongous.
Okay. Humongous what? Humongous what?
Humongous.
Humongous what?
Humongous.
Humongous what?
Humongous.
Humongous what?
That's what it is.
Humongous what? Is that sexual harassment?
No, it's humongous.
Then why did you say that to me?
That's my name.
What? Humongous what?
Humongous what?
Humongous what? Is that sexual harassment? Is that what you just did when you said that to me?
What, humongous?
Why would you say that to me?
Yes, but my name.
Why would you say that to me?
Why would I say it to
Why
you?
would you say that to me?
Why would you ask me my name?
What? Humongous what? Humongous what? Humongous what? Humongous what? This person just spoke to me in a sexually harassing way.
I did not.
Yeah, he did. He said, do you know what my name is? And I said, what? And he said, humongous. Yeah. Yeah. This person just sexually harassed me.
I said I'm humongous.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Humongous what?
Humongous.
So now you're actually pointing to yourself. You're actually pointing to your body parts, and you're actually pointing to your body parts and saying that you're humongous. You're actually doing that. And this is the person who just got interviewed as a pro-bunker person of color, as if you represent us. They're using you as a token, and then you speak to me in a sexually harassing manner. How dare you? How dare you? Disgusting! Disgusting!
You left the room saying your daughter's lives matter, but you
disgusting! You just abused a woman! You just abused a woman, and you have the audacity! You have the audacity to say that girls matter? How dare you? How dare you? You disgusting person! Disgusting! Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
Lower your voice.
Are you going to do anything about how he sexually harassed me? Are you going to do anything about how he sexually harassed me? Are you going to?
I need to go.
Okay, he's asking me to leave. He's asking me to leave after I've been sexually harassed.
I'm just asking.
You're asking me to leave after I've been sexually harassed. Did you ask him to leave? Did you ask him to leave? Did you ask him to? Are you following him? Did you ask him to stop sexually harassing me? What is your name? What is your name? What is your name? What is your name?
So this is the outrage that I was referring to.
That's like Karen energy.
It's beyond Karen energy. This is an evolved version of social justice warrior.
She was looking for trouble. You know, when he first started speaking and he was talking about the diversity of people who support it, they screamed, "Oh, where's the diversity? Are you white? Is she white?" And he was like, "No, we're not white." And then the moment they found out he's not white, they're like, "Oh, then he's a token." It's like anything he said would have gone them wrong. Listen, I don't agree with him. I don't agree with his political stance. I don't agree with what he was doing. Mm-hmm. He took a day off work. Boo-hoo. He took a day off work to promote, you know, something I hate, which is cops. So you could take a million days off work. I don't care. I don't feel bad for that kind of thing. But saying your name is humongous is funny. Even if
it's a
you don't
dad joke.
even if you don't think it's funny, it's like he looked so innocent saying it. He didn't look like he wanted you to
Feel
do
sexually harassed.
or even he didn't even say it in a sexual way. He was just like, my name humongous. Like, who cares? It just sucks because this was a real issue. This was a real thing to actually try to stop, and now it'll be remembered as this girl going berserk.
Zarna actually made a GoFundMe just for her well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I know about Zarna is because of Ethan from H3. And they donated to her GoFundMe for her well-being and was like, well, I hope you use this. I don't like you, but I want you to spend this $200. And she closed it. Let's go on to another triggering feminist. A video from an actual news channel called Sky News. Let's watch.
There it was. There I was thinking it was just me that had a problem, but it turns out it's the air conditioning that's sexist.
I know. So many women in our office have the exact same problem. You know, we just sit there absolutely freezing at our desks trying to type. You can probably tell I've got a cold right now, which I blame all on the AC. And so it's just so actually quite nice to see this research. It's just such a relief to know that there's actually proof that this is happening, that women, you know, do feel the cold more than men, and that the AC in offices is normally regulated more for a male's temperature than a woman's.
And it's an explanation for these constant battles you'll see in offices right across the country between the sexes for control of that office thermostat.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, one of the biggest problems is that often in offices, it is men who control temperatures. You know, that's just something I've found anecdotally. And because majority of the men in offices seem to be absolutely fine with the temperatures, you know, women kind of just sit there on the corner feeling absolutely frozen. And, you know, often, like, actually nothing's being done to help them. And, you know, it might sound like a bit of a silly, light-hearted issue, but actually it's really uncomfortable being freezing at your desk every day. Take it from me.
No, I know I experience the same, because what I've often found is you go in on a really hot summer's day, you're wearing summer clothes, you go into an office and it's absolutely freezing. I think even for some men it must be too cold. I don't understand why air conditioning is often so cold. So what you have to do is then take a jumper in with you and put that jumper on in order to be able to function.
Yeah, honestly, I think so many women listening now are going to just be nodding their heads thinking, yes, that is exactly my reality. You know, we joke at work that we actually can't dress fashionably anymore for summer because you actually just can't go in sandals. You can't go in a summer dress because you're going to have to put on the jumper or the emergency cardigan. So, yeah, it is quite frustrating, especially when you then go out on your lunch break or your commute home and you're absolutely boiling outside. And I think there is a bit of a problem when it's warmer outside than it is inside your office.
That's the point of AC.
I think, well, the other girl said a good point, where some men could be freezing too. I think it's like a health hazard to have a hot working space, and...
Mm-hmm. And it depends how many people are in the office. That's why they set a certain temperature. And also, yes, there are some men who can control the AC level. But that doesn't mean you can't say anything about it to change that.
Also, it's like movie theaters. Like, movie theaters are cold because it's like a large amount of people being in there. It's better for people to be cold than too hot, because if it's too hot, there's actually like health hazards. Like, she said she got a cold from the AC, but if you're like too hot, a lot of worse things could happen. I'm literally anemic and always cold, but if I'm cold, I'll just say something.
There is also probably a study out there that created the culture of keeping the temperature low through productivity research. And there's probably also a energy saving research that says if you keep it at this temperature, it's going to save a lot of electricity. So it could just bump it up a few degrees, but what is the difference? Like, yes, you're less freezing, but this is not an issue. This is a non-issue. Like, yes, you're colder by a few degrees, but you're creating this narrative that is the office space is sexist, is creating a bad rep for any argument after that.
I think if anything, as I said before, as an anemic cold person, if you wanted to say office spaces are too cold for everyone, it might increase productivity, but I think just a couple temperatures higher, I wouldn't have to wear a winter's coat. I would feel a lot better and be more productive. Can we please turn the temperature up? I have this many people in my office that are also cold. Also making sure it's not just you, because if I see that only I'm freezing and everyone else is fine, I'm usually not going to say anything. But if I look over and everyone else is like, I'm going to obviously be like, okay, it's an office space issue. Maybe even it's still a reach, but to say a capitalist issue to make people more productive, it's maybe, but it's not like a gender thing, because this is not a gender thing.
It's a bad argument, and it's like the same argument if you reverse this to like summer or winter issue where you go in, it's way too hot. Okay, then just don't wear that much coats on you. Like, you don't need to go to a reputable news channel to tell us that AC are sexist, because it's not. Alright, next video.
My balls! I don't want my balls sticking to my legs!
Manspreading is when a man spreads his physical body to take up as much space as humanly possible.
The people around you are relegated to a very small portion, but the key to manspreading is not noticing.
We grow up on two different tracks. People who manspread just are socialized not to worry about it.
I have so many vivid memories as a child of my mum telling me to close my legs.
With gender, we're constantly working towards trying to get to this middle.
This week of manspreading is definitely going to make me feel anxious. As much as a super strong feminist, I want to say it won't.
I kind of secretly hope to annoy some men. That's my first train trip as a manspreader. I just feel like a monster already. How can you do this every day without being conscious of it?
I just manspread on the bus for maybe a 5-minute ride for the first time, and it wasn't even half full, and I was already getting glared at, so I think this is going to be a kind of long week.
It's day 2 of manspreading, and I forgot that I had to do this.
I think whenever a woman takes up space, she's considered bossy, she's considered aggressive. There are a lot of stereotypes surrounding black women and whether or not we're angry or we're dominant. And so maybe a lot of the reasons why I do minimalize my presence is because I don't want to be perceived or engage with those stereotypes.
I just got my nails done, and I manspread during my entire manicure, and nobody really seemed to notice. I'm not sure if it was because it was all women and we were just all kind of in our own world or what, but it was kind of awesome.
I'm halfway through the week and really not enjoying this experiment at all.
So exhausting.
I'm still giving my seat up to people who need it because, of course, I am.
Emotionally turmoil.
What is it between their legs that's so important that it requires 2 to 3 seats when there are kids, families, women, and elderly people standing up?
I saw a guy who was taking up 2 seats. When I sat down, I spread my legs out, which kind of pushed his leg into his own seat, and he turned to me and gave me a dirty look and said, "Seriously?"
Women are expected to be quiet, small, and almost invisible, whereas men can be this boisterous slobs, and it's all good.
Today, instead of feeling the confidence that I've kind of been feeling the rest of the week, I started to feel a little guilty. While I was sitting there taking up 2 seats, a guy came up to sit next to me, and instead of moving over like I normally would, I kind of just had to sit there with my legs out, and instead of saying something to me, he just sat on the edge of the seat the entire time.
So I've come across another person, quote unquote, manspreading, but wait, they identify as female. Women can take up space as well?
Even though I'm a confident person, I tend to make myself small even when the situation doesn't call for it. I kind of felt uncomfortable manspreading even though there was no one around me.
I've not enjoyed this week at all. The very first day where a group of people came on, they were going to a game and they were all desperate for a seat and I was taking up 3 seats and they started talking about personal space. All their eyes were just on me and they were mostly women. So if it was a group of dudes, I would have been like, Yeah.
I thought that manspreading would kind of give me this air of disregard because I thought that I worried too much about what people think, and I've realized that I worry just enough. You should be concerned with whether or not the people around you are comfortable because that means you're a good community member.
My favorite part of this exercise was easily when I got to sit next to men who were taking up way too much space and just forcefully work my way into the seat and without words say, hey, I deserve to sit here.
To be forced to manspread really showed me how up your own ass you have to be as a person to not be conscious of those around you.
To the man that's taking up too much space on a bus, on the plane, on the bench, we see you. You don't need that.
There's so much room. You can sit. It's designed so that you can spread your legs if you want to. If the bus is getting full and there's no seating and you're still spreading open wide and it's not causing any issue, it's not taking more space from someone else, it's fine. A lot of the example they showed us, men weren't spreading to the point where they're taking up 2 seats. They're exaggerating.
I think the proper experiment would have been people staying in their space in like a touchy way. Like, I've never had an issue with like manspreading on trains, but I've had an issue where someone sat too close to me, someone accidentally touched me, stuff like that. Like, I hate being touched by a stranger man, and it's extremely scary when it happens like on a train because it's like, why are you touching me? I think if there's 5 seats between us and a guy's manspreading and I'm sitting over here with my legs crossed, like, who cares? But it becomes weird when like there is empty seats and the manspreader decides to sit next to you or something like that, when it's like an actual invasion of your space.
Yeah. As a passionate designer, I want to show you something very quickly, and then one more video after that and we will end. Anyway, that's a concept. I think it's quite ridiculous that you need to make a chair that forces a man to close their legs. We literally have balls between our legs that are very sensitive, and it holds organs inside it, right?
I'm sorry, I just saw the title of the next video and I can't even.
There needs to be some acknowledgement that we have something between our legs that can't be crossed and can't be squashed. You have to realize that there's a reason why we don't put our legs together all the time. It's suffocating. And if women had experienced what we have to experience when we cross our legs, here is the video of a man getting his balls crushed in a loop. It's hilarious. That
Where did you find this? What did
I
you have
wanted
to search to find this?
I just wanted you to acknowledge everyone. I
don't have a problem with
that
manspreading. I don't care.
Can't necessarily have the same experience when it comes to sitting down.
I think a lot of people's issue with manspreading isn't the typical like sitting like this, like we want you to cross your legs. I think it's when the guy like what you saw they were doing and it was rude, like putting your legs up on a chair, putting your backpack and also spreading your legs. It's when it's an invasion of space that it's an issue, not when it's like, I don't have an issue if someone's on their phone and they're like kind of open-kneed. Like girls even do that. I do that all the time.
I have been on a train with all my belongings from my studio I was moving out from into my new place. I was carrying it and minimizing myself as small as I can. I was getting so small and I was still being looked at and said out loud, someone would say out loud, oh, look at him, he's manspreading. I literally made myself so small so that no one get affected by how much I'm holding. Like my backpack was full, everything was on me. And I've seen women take up another seat with their bag just as often as a man spreading their legs. It's not uncommon to see in New York a woman taking up space.
I know.
So I feel like this battle is a lost cause. There is no such thing as, there is invasion of privacy, and those people are rude. And you just call it as it is. It's not manspreading. It's being rude. This title is wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
with that
you.
said, I appreciate you guys sitting through an hour and more to
discuss
I guess
feminism.
listen to us talk about feminism. We enjoy talking about it, and I hope no one cancels us. And we're gonna end with a non-recommendation. We want to warn you not to watch this movie.
Don't watch this movie. It has way too... I don't know what the Rotten Tomato is, but the reason I watched it was because I was like, oh, it has a good Rotten Tomato. It's new.
It looks good.
It looks fine.
Visually. But
It's
the
fine.
storytelling and the story itself was heart-wrenching, and it's hard to watch a villain succeed and fall and succeed again. And
It's so bad.
If
It's
you
such a
watch
bad
it,
movie.
you're gonna have a bad time. It's called I Care a Lot. Do not watch it. It
0
is
out of
a
10.
warning.
It's terrible.
It is a warning. So have a good week.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Don't watch this movie.
Don't enjoy this movie. Have a good one. Bye bye.